are the champion, the one that holds the line and finishes the mission. Everything that you want is within your grasp. You wake up in the morning ready to dominate the day, and every step taken is with purpose and integrity, because you were not put on this planet to live a mediocre existence. You are here to conquer and make the biggest impact possible, not only for yourself, but for your family and for your tribe. This world is a battlefield, and we will be victorious. This is the Norse Mentality.
What's up, guys? I hope that you are having a glorious day. Today, me and my man Cowboy Cody here are going to talk about avoiding comfort and why it is so damn important. Now, you may be sitting there asking yourself, why would I want to avoid comfort? It's nice and it makes me feel good. Well, there's multiple reasons, but the first reason is that it will lead to a life of mediocrity, because if you are in your comfort zone, you are not stepping out of that comfort zone. And the only time that growth happens is whenever we embrace uncertainty and we push through it. And in order to push through it, you have to build a sort of resilience. It's a whole journey, right? Like, it's very important to understand that. If you're in your comfort zone, your life will remain the same. You will remain the same person. The only way to get stronger is by adding difficulty into it. Well, how do we find difficulty? By stepping out of that comfort zone. Now, too much comfort, too much happiness, this is going to sound very weird, but too much of that actually drains you of motivation and determination and all these other things that we need to live the best damn life possible. And the reason for that is because of a little thing called dopamine. Now, before we dive into dopamine, I would like to say that I am not a scientist. Neither is Cody. I barely graduated high school. Cody was a nurse for a little bit, so he understands it more. But this is a good thing because that means I have to explain it on a third grade level because that's my understanding of it. So dopamine is a motivation chemical, pretty much. The more dopamine that we have, the more drive we have, the more that we want to get out there and just conquer and do all of these amazing things. Now, dopamine is a reservoir. Dopamine pretty much lives in a reservoir in your body, and you have to let it refill in order to keep this. We unfortunately live in an age where we are constantly depleting ourselves of dopamine through technology, through food, through alcohol and drugs, through pornography, which if you're listening to this podcast, quit fucking watching porn. It's pathetic. Moving on. All of these things that are a part of the modern world, modern culture, are depleting you of dopamine. Once again, without dopamine, you do not have a drive to better your life, to better yourself, to pursue whatever you want. So dopamine is pretty damn important. Now, on the other end of dopamine is pain. And the way I like to look at this is you have dopamine on one end, pain on the other, and it's kind of like a seesaw here.
Before we go into that, this pain that we're talking about is not like a physical pain.
No.
It's not like...
It's discomfort.
Oh, pain. Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. It's discomfort. So you have comfort on one end, which is, say, dopamine, and on the other end, you have discomfort, pain. Now, the beautiful thing about the human body is that it always tries to balance itself out. So if we are depleting ourselves of dopamine, what happens is our body will automatically start trying to raise the pain there, the discomfort, to balance back out. If we have too much pain, then dopamine comes up. That's why after you do something that's not really comforting, it's enjoyable. You feel great afterwards. Working out, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, a hard hike, mountain biking, going for a run, really any strenuous activity, you feel good afterwards because that dopamine reservoir was getting filled up dramatically because you were experiencing discomfort. The issue is that we don't experience discomfort enough in the modern world. Up until 100 years ago, life was not very easy at all. Now it's super easy, and that is making us miserable. And I know this sounds weird. It is very weird, and it was hard for me to wrap my head around. It's like, wait, too much happiness, that happiness isn't the word for it, but too much of this good thing is a bad thing. But that's how it is with everything in life. Like, you need to find balance across all aspects of life, and that includes what you're indulging in. Whether it's food, TV, social media, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, moderation is the key. Why is moderation the key? Because you don't want to deplete yourself of dopamine. If you deplete yourself of dopamine, then you lose motivation, drive, and all these things needed to live a life of excellence and to reach your true potential, which should be the goal of everyone listening to this podcast and for everyone that has ever existed. You only have so much time on this earth. See what you can accomplish. But we live in a world now where we are just depleting ourselves of this important chemical in our body that is the driving force.
It's because everything's easy these days. Like you mentioned 100 years ago, if you wanted heat in your house, you had to wake up and build a fire. Now, if you want heat in your house, you just go touch the thermostat. There's no work and commitment to it these days. It's almost automatic.
Everything's automatic. And because of that, we don't have to do anything. Like, people just exist now. And that's a very bad thing. They just exist. And because life is okay existing nowadays, you don't have to have much in order to just be alive. Well, the ambition to do more is gone because we're depleting ourselves of dopamine once again. But the way that this was described to me, I think, or I'm pulling this out of my ass, I don't know, but let's roll with it. Dopamine was created through evolution, we'll say. God, I don't give a shit. Either way, humans have dopamine in their body in order to get them to get their ass up, to put in the work, to survive. Okay, I haven't eaten in a few days. Well, when you finally eat, you get this massive release of dopamine. You feel great. That drives you to continue doing that moving forward. Okay, I didn't have a fire for the past week and it's freezing ass cold outside. And once you are finally able to get that fire made, you get a massive release of dopamine. These are all things that if we were forced to do on a regular basis, the world would be a lot better. In all reality, like, us as a species would be advancing much quicker than we are right now because we have to.
I think that came from a book you recommended me, which I haven't read. I went on one of those book buying sprees and bought like 15 books all at one time. So I haven't made it that far yet, but I think it's from Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing book. So it's very easy to understand. She's paving the way with the understanding of dopamine on the human body and how we can use it to our advantage to pursue life to its fullest. Huberman, of course, actually, I got that book recommendation from Huberman because he was like, this is the best book about dopamine. Either way, Dopamine Nation, if you want to learn more about this and how to harness it to its full potential outside of me and Cody just, shooting the shit, go buy Dopamine Nation. It's on Amazon, all that shit. But that's what it is, right? Like, if without dopamine, the drive to do more as a species would not be there, which is why it's such an amazing tool that we can still use in the modern world if we find balance in life. So that's what this whole episode is about. Finding balance. Well, how do we do that? It's exactly how it sounds. Instead of eating comfort food all the time, you save that comfort food for maybe once a week, maybe once a month, whatever your diet is. But we need to be eating healthy a considerable amount of the time. Say 80% of the time, we need to be eating healthy. We need to be eating nutritious foods that are moving us forward and helping us perform. And then every once in a while, we've earned that right to eat lesser quality food. Instead of watching Netflix every single night, save that for one night a week. Instead of indulging in alcohol every day, save that for once a night a week. Like, you have to earn these things. And what I mean by earn these things is put in the work the rest of the time, because that is the reward there, right? Like, the reward is comfort. That's how it's supposed to be. But mankind has figured out how to have comfort all the damn time. But where's the reward? So if we live a life that is just completely comfort driven, pleasure driven, which is modern culture nowadays, if we live that life, what rewards do we really have?
It ends up being more, or it ends up being more of those examples that you gave, or worse examples.
If you don't have any rewards, though, you're 100% right, I think. Whatever, I agree with you. If there's no rewards, then where's the pursuit? Where does fulfillment come from? Where does purpose come from? Where do all these things that are essential for human happiness, where are they if there is no pursuit or reward at the end of the tunnel?
They're non-existent.
They're non-existent, right. So, yes, these things feel good in the moment, but you stop appreciating everything else more. You don't have gratitude for the delicious food that you have once a week or once a month. You don't appreciate the fact that you can turn on the TV and watch anything that has ever been created with videography. You take advantage of the fact that you can communicate with anyone across the world and, find like-minded individuals that have the same goals as you that you guys can use to build a network on the complete end of the world. You stop enjoying, a whiskey drink every once in a while. There is no more pleasure, meaning there is no more happiness. There's no fulfillment in life. So if we want to just be filled with gratitude all the time, we've talked about this on numerous episodes. Gratitude is the most powerful emotion. The more gratitude that you have, the more you're going to be driven to pursue life to its fullest. Well, if we're just consuming all of this shit and we stop appreciating what we have because of that reason, where's the gratitude?
I think that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like your baseline dopamine is here. Well, you indulge. It creates a new baseline of what you need to get that dopamine release.
Yes.
So if it's, you watch Netflix 2 nights a week, well, that just doesn't do it for you anymore. Or you have a drink 2 nights a week. Well, those 2 nights a week just doesn't do it for you anymore. So you have to increase the quantity of those behaviors, or you find more detrimental behaviors to give you that dopamine release.
Which, once again, those detrimental behaviors are not anything crazy. It's just doing something a little bit strenuous, something a little stressful, working out, going for a run, sparring with a friend, riding a bike, going on a hike. Like, these are not crazy things, guys. Like, these are things that we should be doing anyways, but the end result is a better quality of life. If you're feeling down all the time and your anxiety's through the roof, like really all these issues that modern man and woman are dealing with is a direct result of being depleted of this important thing called dopamine. And the reason that we're depleted of it is because we stay in this comfort zone. We are always seeking pleasure. But listen, it's not your fault. That is how we are programmed. We are programmed to seek out the easiest solution in order to survive. We are programmed to seek out pleasure, but we've gotten too good at it. So for the first time in human history, we need to reverse it. We need to seek out discomfort, because if we stay in this comfort zone, we don't grow. It's just like going to the gym. If we go into the gym and we just continue to lift the same amount of weight every single day, we stop growing. We're no longer putting the body, the muscle under stress. And as a result, it doesn't have to adapt and come back stronger. Whenever you force yourself to be in uncomfortable situations, you're forcing yourself to grow. The more that you do that, the stronger you become. Whenever we talk about reaching your true potential, that is part of that equation, is exerting yourself to the utmost amount in order to become stronger, to come back. Every time that you do this, you are leaving that weaker side of you behind a little bit. And it's being replaced with this stronger version of you. You're leveling up your identity. You're leveling up your character. That's the most important part here too. Whenever you force yourself to do this kind of stuff, you're leveling up your character. You're building resilience. If you have resilience to avoid these little things, these comfort foods and whatnot, it sounds silly, but you are building resilience, because that shit's not easy. You're fighting human nature at that point. I don't want to eat this pizza. Having the willpower not to do that is very difficult, and that's not your fault. Human biology is working against you, but that's the thing there. You are able to overcome that, and every time that you overcome that, you are becoming a stronger person. You are no longer being a victim to the human experience. You're taking control of yourself. You're taking control of your mind and your body. So these things are like, oh, I really want to eat the extra large pizza. Every time that you avoid doing that because you know it's not in your best interest, you are gaining self-awareness. And self-awareness is the most powerful tool that we have. The more self-awareness that we gain, the more that we are able to make shit happen. The more that we are able to have better relationships with others, the more that we are able to pursue goals that are actually meaningful to us, that aren't just based off monetary value or what someone else is doing. Like, we get to know ourselves more. And because we have more self-awareness, we get into less fights. We get into less arguments with people over stupid shit. Self-awareness allows you to take control of your life because you're detaching from the primitive, animalistic side of things, which that stuff serves a purpose. I'm not like, I definitely think that the primitive side of man is highly valuable and we do not use it enough.
Well, if all this fabricated reality that we've created over the past couple hundred years and the comforts that we have created, if one wrong thing happens because the system is so fragile, the primitive side is what keeps mankind going.
Exactly. So it's not me hating on that.
No.
I love it. I think that I wish I could tap into it easier and more. It's happened a couple times and it's like, oh, this is the most amazing feeling in the world. I feel unstoppable. Like,
that's why we go camping.
That's why we go camping. That's why we put ourselves, with Muay Thai and stuff like that. Like, we put ourselves in these situations where we're forced to kind of tap into that a little bit. I don't think we ever have to a full extent, of course. I've heard stories of some people and I'm like envious. I'm like, you were able to experience that? Like, I long for it almost, right? But at the same time, it's gaining that self-awareness. It's raising of consciousness as a whole. The more you do that, better quality life you're going to have. And the way that we do that on a regular basis is by avoiding these comforts. It's avoiding all this shit that primitive side of our brain is like, oh, we need this. It's comfort. We need this. This tastes good. This makes me feel good. We need this. Say, no, like, this is not in my best interest. Watching Netflix for 6 hours a day is not in my best interest. Eating an extra large pizza every night is not my best interest. Killing a bottle of whiskey every night is not in my best interest. Watching pornography is not in my best interest, meaning I should not do it. Yes, I will get a little bit of pleasure from it right now, but then afterwards, I feel like fucking shit. And everyone can say that because you know that you can be doing better. You know that this is not the right path, and yet we continue to do it because we have not built up that resilience yet to confront ourselves and to take control of ourselves. People do not have control of themselves anymore, including myself at times. I'm constantly going through this cycle. You guys see it more than anything. Unfortunately, with me, it's stimulants. I'm a stimulant junkie. And the more that I start to lose control, I start to lose self-awareness, I start spiraling. I'm taking more nicotine in through, nicotine pouches and stuff. I'm drinking way more caffeine. I start experimenting with some other stuff. Like, I spiral downwards because I no longer have control over it. I'm no longer in the driving seat. And it's like, no, we need to not do this as much. So this isn't like a attacking thing. This is something that we experience every day as well. But you do build a sort of resilience over time and you strengthen that willpower. And if you have willpower to avoid little comforts like this, well, guess what else you have willpower for? To pursue life to its fullest, to pursue your goals, to level up. So that's the driving force here. Why do I not want to eat this extra large pizza? Because when I do this, I'm losing willpower. And if I lose willpower with this one thing, then I no longer have that willpower to pursue this over here. And if you want to live life to its fullest and you want to accomplish as much as possible with your time here and you want to experience as much as you can, that is the biggest motivator. That is the other alternative. Either we can stay in our comfort zone and we can continue to embrace mediocrity and we can continue indulging in this shit that really has no substance. At the end of the day, this stuff has no substance. It's a very short release of pleasure followed by discomfort on a different level though. It's followed by unhappiness. But when we avoid the shit that doesn't really have any substance to it and instead we get dopamine releases from fucking conquering massive goals, from having a gnarly workout, from hitting a good hike, from beating someone's ass in Muay Thai, if that's where you get your dopamine release from, no one can tell me that that is not more impactful. So that's the goal here. Let's attack life from that angle. instead of being, okay, I'm just going to do this and do this because it feels good. Like, I don't want to feel good from watching Netflix. And this has happened to me throughout the years. I used to watch a lot of Netflix and shit like everybody else. Now I can't turn that fucking thing on without just being like, this is boring as shit. I hate this. The only time I watch it now is if me and my kid are watching a movie, and every once in a while, me and my girlfriend turn on TV. But it usually goes through me like having to go through 5 things till I finally find something that piques my interest just a little bit. But that's the thing is, we start over time, when we start getting our dopamine release from things that we are pursuing, goals and stuff like that, we no longer give a shit about this stuff that really doesn't impact our life in a positive way. So that's the goal here. Like, let's get pleasure from these things. Let's get pleasure from things that are moving us forward instead of things that are moving us backwards. And that's easy to do. We just start avoiding this shit. And by easy, I mean, it's not necessarily easy. It's very hard starting off. But the more that you do it, the easier it's going to get.
I think this ties into, you mentioned gratitude and appreciation. I want to tackle it from a perspective I just thought about. And it's when we earn these things. Like if I, say we work a straight 3-week stretch, just balls to the wall. And then that next week, I go on a hike. I stay completely present the entire time I'm there. And I remember every aspect of that hike because I've earned it. I've put the work in to deserve this. And hiking is one of those things, it's a good example to use because there's no just stopping and there's an immediate release of dopamine. In that moment, even though you've earned it, you're still busting your ass on a hike and keeping that balance level of your pain and dopamine. It's the same thing with Muay Thai. It's the same approach I take. It's one of those things where it's hard as fuck. It's hard as shit. But in the moment, you get that release of dopamine, but the pain is also equal. So there's no baseline disruption. There's no dopamine reservoir depletion. So the memories that you make when staying present and earning these treats, gifts, rewards, the memories you make from those are just there. They're very solidified. And I think that plays a lot into how people nowadays, they'll just be like, oh, I can't remember what I did yesterday. Well, you're not really staying present and earning this. And you're not looking into the big picture here.
The reason they don't remember it, one, because they're not present, but then two, is because the activities that they're taking part in have no substance to them. Yeah, I just watched a little bit of TV last night and we ate dinner. There's no substance to that compared to, yeah, I trained really hard yesterday. There's substance to that. I went on this new hike that I've never been on before. There's something to that. You're pursuing something of actual value compared to just mundane bullshit.
Mindlessness.
Which is the unfortunate reality that we live in now, is that those mindless activities can take up all of our time if you allow it to.
And those mindless activities can take up all of your mind.
All your mind, right? You become mindless. You're no longer able to use this little computer up here to actually problem solve and to actually make shit happen. It's no longer a tool at that point. You're dulling it. The more you dull it, you cannot expect your quality of life to improve if you're not taking care of your mind. Whenever we're doing these mindless things like this, every once in a while, yes, it is nice to just turn off. Say you've had a super hard week. You want to watch a movie. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not that person screaming at you telling you that you only need to do hard shit. No, do things that you enjoy, but we need to be careful about what that is and be careful about how often we are doing it, because we will spiral out of control if you do not have watch over it. So how do we go about this? Like, what is the plan of attack here for people that want to pursue this?
The main thing for me is be conscious of what you're doing. And, you consciously make the effort to not indulge in these things. And then eventually with everything else, like if you're consciously aware of something, it becomes subconscious. So it does get easier when because say I've been there. I mean, a couple years ago, it was just complete shit show of my life. Like, I did just whatever I wanted to do. I mean, without any of this in mind. And thankfully, I stopped that shit.
Yeah, the issue is that people don't stop doing it.
Yeah,
because they love it too much.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's very addicting, but it's just like any other addiction. It's completely detrimental.
Goes back to balance.
Yeah,
that is the first thing. It's gaining self-awareness, but that's the thing is self-awareness isn't one of those things that just happen overnight. It happens more with repetition, like anything else. Like you get better at it. But on top of that, what we can also do is just our day-to-day activities. Okay, if I'm going to eat this pizza on Friday night, well, my ass had better been in the gym 3 days this week. And before I eat this extra large pizza, I went to the gym and I did a heavy leg session. I earned this pizza. If you want to indulge in Netflix at the end of the week, well, make sure you were busting ass throughout the week and moving that needle. You earned that reward. We're not supposed to just have shit handed to us like we do nowadays because it loses the authenticity of it. It no longer has that stimulating effect that it used to, that pleasure that it used to. It just becomes boring, and there's no satisfaction from it anymore. I still, whenever I eat something I'm not supposed to, I want to enjoy it. And the way that I do is by sticking to a strict diet the majority of the time. If I have a whiskey drink, whiskey and gingers with a lime is my absolute favorite thing. I love these fuckers. I will drink, if I didn't have any self-control, I would be having them nonstop. I'd be drinking one right now during this podcast. And I've actually thought about it a few times. I should just have a drink during this podcast. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. But either way, whenever I indulge in these things, I want to love it. I want to feel it. Because I've earned it. It's just small stuff like that. We have to earn our dopamine. But then you can also change the narrative over time where you get dopamine releases by doing hard shit. That's what makes you feel good. That's what I was referring to earlier with like, I can't turn on the TV anymore. I just don't get any satisfaction from it because every day of my life, I'm doing cool shit that I get a giant dopamine release from, like recording this podcast. Every time we record a podcast, my mood skyrockets. Even if it's a bad one, I'm still like, I don't fucking care. Like, whatever, like, this is fine. You can get to that point over time by not indulging in this other shit the majority of the time. So going back to the blueprint, the plan of attack here, we want, the end goal here is to gain more self-awareness. The more self-awareness that you gain, the more that you will have control over these type of things. The more that you're able to harness dopamine to move you forward instead of just being depleted of it and staying in the same place. But the way that we do that is by setting strict rules with ourselves. If I'm going to have a cheat meal this week, I better have stuck to a meal plan. I better have eaten healthy this week. I need to go to the gym and get a great workout in. That way, when I eat all those tasty carbs, they're getting utilized for recovery and for building muscle. If I'm going to have a couple drinks, I need to make sure that I busted ass this week. If I'm going to watch Netflix, I need to make sure I was doing that. If I'm going to smoke a little bit of weed, I better have made sure that I earned that. The shit should not just be given to us, but because of the age that we live in, it is. So we need to be careful about this. And just to wrap this all up, the motivating drive to not indulge in all this comfort 24/7 is for a better quality of life down the road. It's in the pursuit of excellence, of becoming the best version of yourself. We cannot do that if we are just always being victims to modern culture and modern society. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that you need to. Just because all your friends are going out multiple times a week doesn't mean that you need to. Just because everyone else spends hours watching TV every night doesn't mean that you need to, because you should want more for yourself. And the way that we get more for ourselves is by having self-control. Pursuing the hard shit because we know that's going to make us stronger. And that way, when we do indulge just a little bit, it's so much more rewarding. And that's where that lust for life comes from. We're no longer weakened by the experience of life, the human experience. We learn to embrace it, and we learn to love every aspect of it, because it is the most beautiful thing on earth, and we need to take it. We need to appreciate it more instead of abusing it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Norse Mentality. This podcast is a byproduct of Norse Fitness. We make clothing, fitness accessories, supplements, and other tools to help you reach your true potential. You can check it out at norsefitness.co. And if you found this episode beneficial, please share it with a friend. That way we can continue to make a bigger impact and change the world. Thank you for your support, and we'll talk to you soon.